I can see in our next speaker a future that is unfolding that I might not be directly a part of, but I take such confidence in the way that this work is being made and thought about. So with that, I'd like to introduce Eddy Vajarakitipongse. I try. His incredible last name. Eddy is an inspired Los Angeles native, ArtCenter College of Design alum, accomplished creative, technical director, experiential designer, audiovisual installation artist, multimedia consultant, and dog lover. Eddy's work has taken leaps and bounds since he graduated from fine art here at ArtCenter. The work has gone through museums, entertainment environments, big productions, immersive experiences, work where creativity, technology, and immersion and embodied experience come together. And this world is one where ArtCenter has a really unique role to play in the future. We can see in Eddy's entrepreneurial career, as well as in the way that he's integrated his work with clients and artists and musicians, as something that represents this multidisciplinary approach that we're talking about. And it goes without saying that there's so much in this work that Eddy won't even begin to touch on. One of the key aspects of Eddy's impact in the region is the creation of the Los Angeles Video Artists Association, LAVA, and Audiovisual Artists Association. And LAVA has grown to be a community across the region and really the country that is looking at the integration of spatial experience, live performance, projection, video, and production. And Eddy's clients, I could go through the list. They span major corporations like Pepsi, nonprofits like KCRW, artist studios, you name it. So with that, invite Eddy to the stage for our final presentation of the day.
All right. Not usually on this side of, usually up there in the booth first for things. So if we could actually get the house lights down as much as possible. And thank you, ArtCenter, for inviting me today, and a million special pixelated thank yous to my supportive wife, family, and friends and collaborators. I'm here today to share a few moments from a handful of projects that really tickled my skull. Projects that completely rely on getting creative with technology. So we'll give a little bit of ground here. On the left picture, you'll see my buddy Manuel, who's also an ArtCenter alum. We're pushing pixels on old CRT square monitors fresh out of ArtCenter. On the right side is what pushing pixels is more like for me now, more like a video village. And you see it's much more screens, and it's takes much more people to make things happen. The entertainment industry meets museums. In the contemporary fine art world, I spent almost 15 years, and the fine art acquisition started to include dynamic multimedia and multisensory installations. From Diane Theater to James Turrell, I became part of a global conversation and found my extreme joy in contributing to the success of these installations. This is pre-hashtag pop-up immersive experience. I picked one exhibition from that time, and how it leads into a lot of what I'm doing now is this exhibition, the Pierre Huyghe retrospective. And this is one of the exhibitions that utilized technology that was slated for and designed mainly for entertainment and award giving, and I found myself playing with equipment to make artists work with. In this installation part, one media server system was controlling all of the elements of the exhibition, so someone could walk in and play Pong on the ceiling, while as they approached the aquarium, the lights would dim and the aquarium would reveal itself. In this room was a projected video, but the light of the projection was also a character and an element. So we needed to figure out, how do we make that character live? So we had to design things here. And it was about uptime, because these are presented to the public. There's a little bit of, I'm going to be showing you a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. So you can see what looks like what you would on the right side see more in a production area. And then you get artwork out of it, right? It's pretty cool. And then if there's a dog around, I'm there. This started to really open up my eyes into what other types of technologies were coming around. Robbie mentioned lava, and with that group of creative technologists, we really started looking at, why would you just use a projector on a screen, or why would you use a computer to just do work, and play games? Like, let's invent something new. And so I started getting involved with a bunch of different projects. And I don't have the volume control like I did earlier, so I'm going to ask the booth to handle. We'll play some stuff, get the audio going, and then we'll just kind of bed it so that we can keep talking. So this is a group of projects here. I promise you, I'm going to show you quite a bit of things, but I promise it's a handful of stuff that we can really get into and talk about. So this is expanding from the museum world and going into brand activation, commercial, independent artwork, BLM, transporting space. We were developing a lot of acronyms and being in those kind of conversations. So AR was what we were using before the term projection, right? So it's always virtual production. Is that something AR effect, or is it on American Idol? One of the earliest virtual productions that we did, a lot of the technology really was projection. Here on a movie set, the director wanted a combination. You're gonna see me running around here and pretty worried about stuff, because you're building on the fly, but you're also working with technologies from other industries.
See VR, where good story will be told in spatial narrative.
And then you get creative directors like this, like Brett Leonard.
I'm now going to walk into the dome area where we're going to be.
She also was like, okay, he has a vision to execute.
Projections for Hollywood Rooftop will be on this dome. The sky will be this dome. Rise to the line of Hollywood will be that site. All projections. Okay, pull. What a great fun. Did I get a take that to the measurement like that? Here's how you raise a dome.
This guy didn't kill anybody. And what was the reason of him doing that was was because he wanted to portray an environment in one area, and then also have an extended reality environment outside of the area, and at the same time also shoot this simultaneously in 360 and also in 2D traditional, and with no budget, of course. So that felt like a nonprofit feeling for me, but even a for-profit area. So you don't put a dollar value on it, you put your integrity and curiosity into it, right? So here's a little bit of BTS footage from my phone, so it's not the greatest footage, but when you're working in real time, it's really hard to actually take a document too of stuff, right? We're using very similar technology here that was used in an exhibition like the Pierre Huyghe exhibition too. So that's really, really interesting for me, being able to have the technological experience and curiosity, but then also that sensitivity to a creator, whether they're part of the nonprofit world or part of the for-profit world, that they have a vision that needs to be executed, and I'm not going to stop till that happens. And that means that we need to bring more people involved in it. So, this next project was with Facebook, and this was just before pandemic. And this was one of the early conversations around XR when Unreal Engine and was starting to get a little bit popular. And we immediately found out that that was not the answer. It is maybe now, and it's a lot of fun for us. But in this case, what I'm celebrating here is what in the projection mapping space is kind of the holy grail of edge blending in a double cyc wall with multiple projectors. And again, trying to just get a vision going for even a company like Facebook, right? So we experimented with a lot of things: lasers, holograms, XR technologies, camera sensors, really helping different companies figure things out that maybe they weren't specifically designed for, and adapting them. And this aired. It had an insane production schedule too, which I like. I like that in one zone you could move really slow, and another zone you move really fast and stop and go. And here we were developing, shooting, editing, and turning it around the same week for 3 months. I'm not one to judge what is good content or not. I just like what I like to produce and create things that I would like to see myself too. And it was a great blend of different worlds. And this and a few other projects in the XR space, in the virtual production space, had me thinking more about syndicate. And this was brought up by a colleague of mine and a good friend of mine about how, I always was thinking of collaborators and this sort of thing. But as I started my own studio and business, he's like, no, it's just more of a syndicate. Like, it's just more of a collective idea. Like, we can keep going forward with this. And I said, I think cost keeps people out of going forward sometimes. So what can we do about it? So I started to look at that and start to say, what could we bring to people and creators that can't afford big studio budgets or big institutional budgets and stuff? How can we get this more in the hands of people? So you make friends and you make partnerships. You make ways of again, making seeing the vision for different creators, and you let them have fun too. Having fun. The lighting point out as the creative process goes. I might skip through a few things here pretty quickly. This is
Súbele al bass. Me encanta que le subas al bass.
matching
Súbele al bass.
high level.
Me encanta que le subas al bass.
In camera augmented reality, so that way you can
Súbele
now
al
have these
bass.
tools available.
Me encanta que le
for
subas al bass. Súbele al bass. Súbele al bass. Súbele al bass. Súbele al bass.
sensors and other technologies.
Tienes suerte, hoy hacemos boom boom. Hace tiempo te estoy casando. No te salvas, te tengo temblando. Un beso, un agarrito. No estás abriendo el apetito. Si tienes miedo, yo te lo quito.
Another experimenting. Well, how can we get this in the hands of social media? That would be extremely so we did the hard work, figuring out all the lens calibration stuff, so that creators can come in. And this is a little bit of a recap of year one, specifically concentrating on accessibility for independent creators. So we can have a little bit of volume on this one.
You can call me princess, you can call me goddess, or a god, whichever one. Give you some, you rebel on, throw it back, depending on what level you want. If I give you my hand, then you can handle the pen, and you can call me the pope when no one ever you can. And after we done, you put my face on your mental. Follow up your brain, no friends, be careful. Turn it up when you forget about to get loud. Get loud. Crank this shit up, it's about to go down. Go down. You hear what I said? Did you hear me the first time I what he said? I said no, baby, let's go back to bed. I'm a fantasy, so hold on to me and I'm on this when I see all this proof you a lucky miss. You need to count the blessings. I'ma make the beat, I will just take these blessings. I can tell that you like it from the refreshing. I'm always clean.
Happy to say that one of the youngest African-American producers for Netflix was able to go ahead and pitch a few things, hanging out for a couple of days at the studio, and it was really happy for them for that. This one was another project that we did where we wanted to kind of throw everything that we kind of knew we could do here, and yeah, just let you watch it. It's going to be a mix of virtual production, in camera, augmented reality, virtual flashlights onto 3D objects, atmospherics, tiny bit of AI and Midjourney stuff started to come into our peripheral. Proving concepts that we can, aim to pull AAA industry capabilities and bring them down to everyone's hands. This is me testing another sensor, and what this is proving here is that even though the physical wall is bent, when the camera doesn't see that distortion, it looks completely normal. Some of these projects are super in development. So if the music sounds a little off and you're like, why is that? You might get a prize if you can email me later and tell me what's going on here with this music and why am I doing that? Because it's not for nothing. And because we're able to demystify so much of the AAA resources and capabilities, then we can not just get photographers, we will get up and coming musicians too, like Neil Francis here who came to the studio.
I like the attitude. Yeah, come on.
Dogs. So then creators can have fun, right? They don't need to be thinking about is technology working or not. We are also into 3D scanning, nerfs, Gaussian splats, training ourselves. We were really early with Luma, Instant NGP. So the back end part of creation too. And not needing to be stricken by control environment. I mean, this I created while they were doing that photo shoot, and I had nothing to do, so I just walked around really quick with my old phone and wanted to see what would happen. Now I have a 3D asset for them that I could give to them, and they can use however they want. That's another early, like taking old footage and seeing what happens when you put them into these newer technologies. And all of a sudden, you're getting 3D assets available for independent creators now too. Maybe not perfect, but in production, you know, you don't really have to worry about making something that is seen from public in a public space in 3 dimensions, right? You're kind of watching edited final. So so there's some lenience there. It's a different place to create than doing something for James Turrell or Pierre Huyghe or something. We started getting pretty good with our AR also, and getting pretty good quality out of it for not using what the pros use, so to speak, right? Dog. Comparison test too, right? Like traditional photogrammetry versus newer radiance field technology. You know, pros and cons all around. So during beta testing, studios are also, and not just production studios, but artist studios also are coming to us sometimes to practice blocking and practice what they might do somewhere else. So pre-visualization is interesting. Like one part of the footage is a NERF, a neural radiance capture 3D, and the talent subject was a volumetric capture somewhere else in a parking lot somewhere. And what happens when you drop that into 3D environments? Now we have the digital playground. Like how does lighting affect things? How does music affect things? And editing, right? So bringing all the pieces back together again and seeing what happens.
You look so fine.
And then let's bring in some AI on top of it, right? To see if we can get this out of a previs and into something else. And then, of course, yeah, splatting as Gaussian splatting, as was mentioned before. It's probably the first set of lowriders 3D scanned or Gaussian splatted. I don't know, all these terms I think it's crazy. We need more of it, maybe. Somewhat for fun, but also too, it's also has a project attached to it, and we're going to be able to bring certain lowriders from one project, because they're going to be touring in another area, and we can't have the lowriders there for cost and logistics reasons. So let's scan them and maybe put them in AR or something like that. But then this could also be used as an environment for an independent creator to go ahead and have a virtual scene also, right? And then recently I've started to train AI, instead of creating images, how about get better dance moves? And so this was one of the first experiments with Move AI. Just singing in the rain, what a glory. Elements of this type of, I don't know if it's called virtual production, or if it's called XR, extended reality production, or if it's called real-time visual effects, or if it's called in-camera visual effects. It doesn't matter to me. I want to know what is the intention and how are we going to get there in the most fun way. And now, my dear friends, I just want to leave you with a quote that continues to inspire me. And I thank you all for taking the time today as we culminate an awesome Creative Tech Week. I appreciate you. And I'm not going to read it out loud. That's it. Yeah. Still debating the whole business card thing, but I think QR codes might stay, so that's an active link, not just an easy picture to watch. Yeah. I'm gonna stay right here. It's my safe place where I have a lot of technology. I just need my comm set, and I'm really at home. So.
Thank you so much, Eddy, for that talk. It was really cool to see sort of all the different pieces of technology you're using working together. I was curious, so the technology space, it can move really quickly. You know, the projection mapping space, sort of, sorry, I'm giving too much context. What, what software do you recommend students like learn or sort of invest their time in, because that space moves so quickly and the technology changes so quickly? You know, how can we make responsible decisions with sort of our time in terms of software, hardware, what's still supported versus what becomes obsolete, et cetera? Like what strategies to use to make those decisions?
I like to look at software to understand what the software was intended to be used for. even if it was something like Photoshop that has a million use cases. Like when I teach a workshop on projection mapping, for instance, it's about projection mapping and not learning the whole software, right? Because almost like working collaboratively, software now works collaboratively. So why not, instead of having one software, two softwares that can do a lot of things, maybe you don't need all that bloatware, right? You just kind of need a little bit of this that they do really good and this that they do really good. And then you might find out that some of that stuff lies in open source realms, some stuff that's even being developed, or they even have a free version that has just enough quality for you to take it one step and gets you to get that software doing what it does best, right? And then another software that does upscaling or quality improvement really good. Combine that together, and then you can have a fuller project, maybe saving a couple bucks. So depending on your intention also is what's something that stuck with me from my time at ArtCenter that helped me understand a lot of differences over the past couple decades is intention. What is the intention of what you're creating? Or even if, in my case, a lot of times supporting other artists, what are their intentions? And how are we going to get there then? So as much as I'd like to promote my top 5 favorite softwares that I use on a daily basis, it will definitely change next week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, so thank you for your presentation. And so I think the interactive artwork that the kind of you made is very different from the traditional artworks that the experience bring to the viewers. And since you were in fine art, what do you think that the curation in the museum would be different from the traditional art to this kind of interactive art?
I don't know if I understand the question.
So since the experience bring to the viewer would be very different from the traditional like painting to this kind of things.
Yeah.
What do you think the curation would be different in a museum that would be more suitable for?
Okay, I understand. Yeah, that's a super great question. It's the responsibilities I feel like of the curators to really not just understand the intention, but understand also the logistics around and assembling the care that and understanding that's needed to produce a multimedia, multi-sensory installation work. So like during my time in museums, I was a term was developed called time-based media, and that started to lend itself to with curation and collection and acquisition, meaning like, okay, like this is not just like a traditional artwork that is a painting or sculpture. It's not self-contained, right? It has multi-dynamics going on. It may have a computer attached. It may have lights and all kinds of things attached to it. So it's the curation process has to be more thought through and has to include other aspects and bring them up, right? The logistical and physical aspects are just as important as the conversation around it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. The previous question builds perfectly into mine, which is a little bit more regarding logistics. What do you recommend in terms of, for projection mapping specifically, creating the experience in a way that's discrete, like for projection mapping in a relatively industrial space that is designed for like ambience and minimalism? How do you include like 4 projectors, and how do you go about defining which projector to use and how to place platforms? All of those questions. I've been working on an installation project for 4 months and I haven't been able to execute it because I can't figure out the platform installation or those kind of things.
Yeah. It's a very good question. There's not one answer to that. And I think that that's the exciting part, because there's multi approaches to achieving that And the easy answer is that it's going to come down to budget, but also that shouldn't be the stopping point. You know, if you get to that kind of edge, then you make friends there, right? So you then start working with each other, or you really have to ask yourself if that's what you need. Then that's what's going to make it happen, right? So
are there
to integrate technology, like I think is what you're saying too, right? Is to make it a part of the intention of the environment that it's in also. Right. So it's understanding that too. So is that moment of intention coming from your side to communicate with that space, you know, is now gives you the opportunity to now pick times of the day maybe, or like scheduling when and how many people could experience that, and so many questions start to open up at that point.
Do you ever make, as a result of the constraints of a space, like woodworking around a projector, or like creating enclosings, etc.? Is that, would you say, part of the process that's necessary for like creating an ambient experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like, for instance, with the Pierre Huyghe installation, where we had a projector that needed to be in a room filled with fog, basically some kind of atmosphere that projectors don't like, then you have to build a way for them to coexist, because the intention needed them to be. The beam of the light is in character, just like in the film, right? So then it should be, the technology should be invisible, because the intention has been executed in a clear way. So yeah, we did need to develop a lot of things and experiment. So you have to not be afraid of that too. And sometimes you'll find out, I think very similar to some of the other talks today, where you just have to figure it out sometimes. Sometimes something was designed for something else, and it has advantages towards something that you want also. Right.
Okay, thank you.
We could talk more about it too if you want. Hit me up.
All the stuff is great. I have a couple questions. As a photographer, and teaching students of photography, on the front end, how much of the content you use is actually captured through analog, and how much of it's been created, post? Second, are you using laser scanners like the Faro scanners, like the BLK, or anything like that, or is it all pretty much just using through photogrammetry or LiDAR or anything like that?
Yeah, a couple. Maybe do the first one again. Your first question.
First question is how much of it is actually captured through analog,
but
brought into it, like basically photogrammetry.
I mean, it depends on the project, I guess, but I mean, if I'm understanding you correctly, I think it's
like how much of the content are you using that's been captured versus been created just by through like animation, basically. You just use it based to like whatever you need, or?
Well, I think maybe if I'm understanding, it's almost like talking about different sources.
Yeah, sources. Like, so would you hire a photographer, or how would you create that content to bring in to some of your projects?
I see. Yeah. So like with the lowrider data set.
Yeah.
Right. The approach was taking an old approach of photogrammetry and getting 600 to 1,000 photos done of the car, in circles and stuff. Like take that approach, but then, and what from that is that you have a solid data set that then can be adapted to newer technologies like radiance fields or Gaussian splatting, which now then connect back into virtual environments and digital twins. So sometimes you use a combination of techniques to bring it into a different workflow. And then maybe on set, what you might do is use that scan and as another element in the space that, let's say you were, you know, in a small studio somewhere and you needed those cars, or you needed a battleship or whatever, and it just doesn't fit in the space, or it's cost prohibitive or whatever. So then you can combine technologies there. But my point was more to always keep it in real time. You know, even though we're shooting and stuff, like it's really important that it's a real-time experience for everybody working on the project. I don't know if that helps with.
No, it does. It does.
Okay.
I'm just kind of thinking
Yeah.
as a photographer, like,
Yeah.
you know, capturing this stuff, is it important to capture it in a three-dimensional way, or is it still need to be that linear? And how is that going to be for photography in the future? Or is it even
for
relevant?
photography to create
for photography,
3D?
right, as working collaboratively within this environment, or do you don't think it?
No, we definitely photographers were one of the first folks I wanted to get tracking technology in their hands. I wanted people to have the ability to, just like a movie studio, to have virtual environments, right? For photographers too, that they can move around a space and feel like they're in an environment. The analog part, I think, comes in when you're doing the combination of collaboration, right? And then one person maybe on something that is working with analog techniques, and then other people might be working on completely server and code stuff, right? Completely digital, right? But the end result is still coming together. And then does it matter how it was done, because there's meaning now, you know?
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And one last one, just
Yeah.
Do you have you ever used like the Faro scanner, the like a BLK, anything like that?
We and I have experimented with some of that stuff. It's very interesting how much more fun it is to do it yourself and take the techniques of what they're using, and finding out, like, okay, if it's a LiDAR scanner and stuff, like, it's not the answer. Actually, LiDAR is great at giving you measurements, but it's not great at giving you photographic accuracy, right? So then you have to look at another technology if that's what you want to produce. But if you want to produce maybe motion capture with LiDAR or something, you know, you can adapt that technology for different fidelity use or something. So it's maybe something like a Matterport scanner or something like that, right? That would capture an environment, or are you speaking more like a handheld portable or something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've done a lot of work overseas, you know, scanning structures, ancient structures, and creating 3D models based on that, and then handing them off to people that would augment them, put them in games and whatever. So I was just wondering if that's something that, because I'm using it for measurements, but then it ended up being used also for this creative side, because that really pays the bills on the measurement side, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
right?
no, I understand what you're saying,
like,
because I
used
to stress myself out trying to always go for high quality. And not realizing that the intended use was never going to be inspected that way, right?
Exactly.
Or if it is, then go do that for that instance. But then 90% of the time, you know, if you, like you said, if it goes into it becomes a game asset or something like that, it might fly by you at 120 frames per second or something, right? And then, you know, is it being appreciated for the quality of work that you did, or is it being appreciated for the quality that came out of the intention? And in that sense, it's going to be yes, both ways.
Both ways, yeah, always.
Right?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I definitely feel like there's much more interesting ways to create what you're talking about, without needing to use expensive or commercial grade equipment. There is also some other, like I mentioned before, computer vision, autonomous robot type of technology stuff that isn't necessarily meant for virtual production, but on the bare bones basis, it's actually does it very well. And then you find out that it just doesn't cost as much because it's not, you're not buying 1 million units for the bot to walk around and survey something.
Super expensive.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Thank you. That's cool. One more.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Eddy, for this great presentation and overview of all these amazing projects you've worked on and technologies. And possibly as a great way to wrap up the conversation is with such a just exotic set of different technologies and finding ways to make them work together. And like you say, repurposing technologies. What would you say is like good first steps, for the students and anyone else who's interested in this field to get into it? Because I think it's safe to say there's no specific job description of this is what you do in this field because it's changing every day. So where should people start with that?
What's great is that there's so many resources online that of communities, community resources. Depending on if you're already thinking in this realm, you probably have an idea of what kind of softwares or entities are working in this field to some degree, even just by a quick, simple Google search. You'll probably want to find out like what level of production intensity do you need here, right? Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer because it's constantly developing, right? Like I think 10 years ago or so, I would have said, go this route, go that route, but this is still pretty touchy, so don't show that to the director at all, But now it's like, yeah, show them as much as you can, because actually they probably have done a little bit of research too. So then you actually can bring more toys to the playground then, at that point. I would definitely start with what is the most curious for you. And you might find out that you can actually access it a bit faster than you might have thought. And so it's very similar to the previous question of like, then you need to use certain types of technology and laser scanners or whatever and stuff. And well, no, not all the time, right?
So if I understand correctly, it's more of an approach and methodology of how to find those resources and communities that you'd recommend learning as the first steps in some ways and moving that direction.
Yeah, there's so many ways of accessing these communities because it's international now, right? Like people are developing all over the place, and sometimes they're contributing to an existing platform, or sometimes they're just completely developing something new. I've noticed that in recent years, more companies are open to allowing unknowns, like myself, to just go ahead and be beta testers for some pretty cool high-end stuff. Right? Like I'm not like a James Cameron or some kind of well-known name or something like that, where they're just like, yeah, here, have all the good toys. But I have noticed that if you are after something and you reach out to those in that area, they will be very receptive. Even with projection mapping and stuff, like if licensing is an issue or something like that, they are so open to go ahead and grant you even a temporary license for just what you want to do, or maybe you've stated a case that you need this license for in perpetuity or just for a year or something, and then that will get you where you need to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Steven. What's that? Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, sure. He's encouraging me to promote Lava. So Lava, we're turning 20 years old this year. We're looking forward to becoming our NPO next year. Right now, it's a very loose organization of creative technologists. If you're in the area and you would like to know more, there's some info in that QR code. And we try to hold monthly meetings, meetups. We've tried to spotlight artists. We try to provide those avenues and access to whatever sort of creative technology they're doing. And Lava is a range of performers to complete developers. Yeah, you should definitely check it out if that's something that you're feeling like creative technology should stay in a more creative nonprofit kind of a way. It's really great because it actually does give you a lot of the skills to transfer over to like a commercial job and so forth too. In there we try to also like pass work on and give artists opportunities to be in environments maybe as a what we call a V2 or as someone to shadow one of us or something like that. Put them in an environment that that usually you have to work your way up to. And Lava's been that kind of place for a lot of people. Yeah.